I began working with dancers probably about 18 years ago when I treated one of the male principals from San Francisco Ballet who had torn his Achilles tendon. And that's often a career-ending injury for a dancer because your calf and your Achilles are so critical to every move, releve, plie, jumping, landing, etc. That went quite well, and I think from there it sort of opened the doors to a fairly steady stream of dancers coming from that particular company. And I sort of got into this area of specialty just based on my background. I did my undergrad in biochemistry and physiology, and then did graduate work in biomechanics. So that's the study of how the body works from a mechanical point of view. I did that all at UCLA, and it really gave me a good background to just look at any emotion to figure out what's going on, why, and how, and what's going wrong if something's broken, and how do we fix it. So, prior to a lot of work with ballet, I'd work with professional athletes of all sorts. Long history with the NFL, with NBA, with Olympians, with college, all sorts of collegiate athletes, boxers, etc. So my experience was more in the sports world, but it's an easy application over because it's all movement at a very high level, and as long as you can analyze it and look at it and break it down, you can put it back together. So that really is what brought me into the ballet world. So I've got a strong relationship with them still, and I'm their primary rehab consultant. I work with the San Francisco Ballet, as I say, for the last 16, 18 years, and I'm their rehab and training consultant from an official point of view. So I do a lot with them. I also work with Lions Ballet and Smume Ballet that are both in San Francisco as a regular consultant to their companies. I have collaborative relationships with different companies throughout the U.S. and even Europe, where I'll see dancers coming over from them, and they'll spend 1 week to 3-4 months with me training and rehabilitating. I see dancers student dancers from all over the state and beyond. So it's really a big gamut of it. I work with a lot of the local and California sorts of schools. They'll send people up or talk to me about problem cases. I also work with the San Francisco Ballet School as their training and conditioning consultant, going in-house, doing injury prevention and conditioning classes, which has been relatively new but working out fabulously, and the program's getting a great benefit from that. Ballet injuries, unlike sports injuries where there's high forces in an acute setting, are more in the category of use-overuse. They have more to do with, lots of reps in one plane, in big ranges, and they tend to be more, like I say, in the overuse category. So it's common to see, because of the ranges that the body is taken through, and because of the setup of a ballet body, which is typically more unstable or lax than tight, that you get injuries in those categories. So you can see stress reactions of bones. You can see ligament tears, both chronic and acute. You can see tendinopathies or tendinitis in all sorts of places in the body, based on muscle tendons struggling to hold a joint. You can see cartilage wear and tear, and even meniscus tears. The most common, I'd say, would be the knee, would be patellofemoral, or wear and tear under the kneecap where the cartilage gets worn. Patellar tendinitis, these are common, tend to be more in men than women. The variety of ankle tendinopathies, so posterior tib tendinitis, flexor hallucis, you'll see that in both sexes. Some wear and tear in general of the ankle. The chronic ankle sprain, so the ankle that just continues to hurt and hurt, there's no really fixing it. You've got a loose ankle, and then you start to get sort of wear and tear of the tissue based on that. See cartilage wear and stress both of the hip and the shoulder in a similar way. It could be labral tears, etc. Maybe it's slightly more in women than men in terms of the hip. Spine pathology, degenerative joint sorts of things, disc issues, those are a little bit higher in the men than the women. Um, and then there's the different pathologies of the foot, the big toe, itis, the sesamoid sorts of issues, heel pain based on an os trigonum where you're impinging in the back. Those tend to be more common in the younger population of dancers. As I said before, the difference between sports and ballet injuries, just grossly speaking, is this sort of higher force, rapid pace, quick direction change, landing, impact issues that are involved in sports, which aren't really commonly a part of dance. So that's the biggest issue. They share, however, similarities in terms of strain-related problems, so the tendonitis sorts of things, the instability sorts of things, and compressive-related problems, so bone stress, meniscus stress, cartilage stress. They both share those sorts of use kinds of problems. And they both need to be optimally brought back and retrained in a full level to compensate for or recover the function that they've lost, whether it's ligamentous or tendon strain, or it's meniscus or cartilage compressive issue. Both crafts need to be able to recover fully, optimally, to be able to return to their level of function. The difference is with sports, you're potentially training higher force production, so you're pushing heavy weights, things like that. Where in ballet, it's more about training perfection of movement through big, long, full ranges of motion. I prepare dancers from a preventive care point of view by understanding intimately what the job requirements are, what the job demands of their body from a physical point of view. Not only the ballet specific moves and positions, but also class, choreography, the preseason, the season, and even like a touring workload. What will the demands be on this body? In general, it's really upping the stamina element of it, so that they can make it through not only a day's work and repeat and perform right, but make it through a whole season with good durability and tolerance, because that's what happens. There's usually just a breakdown based on fatigue and repetition. So the cardiovascular vigor is really the key to that, taking your machine and up in the ante, getting into your heart rate and staying up in that. Because even though lots of ballet action could be a 2-minute bout, etc., it's not really like an endurance event or a marathon. The overall experience of a whole show, of a whole day, again of a whole season, requires that your body just does have some increased durability and tolerance, and cardiovascular stamina does that. The second thing that I always go after is the ability to be in your muscles. That is the ability to activate the key muscles that one needs around every joint around the body to keep it lengthened and up against gravity, so that you can motor and control and stabilize your joints. And it's not strength training. Strength training is not the key. We're not picking up and moving weights, but it's the ability to turn on, activate key muscles around all key joints that are involved in action. I call this neuromuscular training because it's more of a ability from your brain to body to turn something on, and to be able to turn on wholly, both independently and as a whole group, and stay in that muscle group. That's a super key other part of preventing injury, and that should be a major component of any supportive exercise program for a ballet dancer. It should be specific to their body type and their strengths and weaknesses. My general recommendations for sports and fitness are that you must prepare your machine above and beyond what you do to practice your craft. That's an absolute. The best of the best, the pros that I see, always do that. So that means you have to be able to identify what supportive actions you need to do to get the machine to move optimally. And it is an exercise prescription. To run through the same pattern over and over and over can make you very good at that pattern, but it also has elements of breakdown in it. So I always recommend that you figure out what loads need to be supported, what kinds of motions and actions are you doing, and how do we train the body to support those loads and actions. Again, the superstars do that. They know how to support their machine in a way to make it move optimally so they could present it for their sport, for their craft as it relates to dance, and the machine's ready to roll at the best level it can. It's fiction that strengthening muscle shortens muscle and makes you bulky and short and tight. There are ways that you can train to somewhat shorten and tighten a muscle, but it's very complicated and inconvenient training. That has nothing to do with how one would strength train for a ballet dancer. In ballet, it's really about what we just talked about. Strengthening has more to do with neuromuscular training. That is the ability to find a muscle, to turn it on maximally, to sustain it in order to protect and stabilize and motor a joint. So that is specially designed work that has nothing to do with throwing heavy weights around at all. And sure, there are people, if you look at bodybuilders, that's very complicated strength training that's designed to get super bulk, and it's very, very difficult to do. Again, strengthening for a dancer has nothing to do with that. It has to do with more finesse and nuance and the ability to turn on a muscle maximally and use it fully through the intended complete range of motion involved in dance. This is such a hot and tricky topic. Basically, diet is a math equation. It's as simple as that. Calories in, calories out. Energy input in, energy input out. You really can't cheat that system. It's as simple as that. And unfortunately, you do need to be conscious and aware of that, what you're putting into your body versus what you're using on a daily basis, particularly if you're thinking about weight loss. But even in the case of weight maintenance or weight gain, it's simple math. And on the topic, the idea of counting calories has always seemed to be so taboo and something we can't talk about. But the reality is that you have to be conscious of what you're putting into your body. You have to be conscious of what's a protein cost you or equal in terms of energy. What's a carbohydrate? What's a fat? Protein store in a lean fashion, carbohydrates don't. Fat, you can gives you the most energy per bite or a gram, and it's easy to get out of control with that. But one has to understand the equation on that in order to lose weight or maintain weight or gain weight. With dance, it's a funny situation because weight, body shape, etc., is such at the forefront of everyone's mind that you can't help but be involved in it. But there's actually a way to have it all. There's a way to get away with doing everything you want. And the key is to not just restrict yourself, but to figure out how you can increase your energy use every day. And the key to that really is good, fairly intense cardiovascular training above and beyond what you do in dance. Because dance, while it's active all day, while it's challenging, while it's impressive, while it uses your body, it doesn't tax the body from an energy expenditure point of view much. So the key to living not a life of restriction is to be able to go get after it from a cardiovascular point of view 4 or 5 times a week in a way that's not stressful and damaging to the body, but a way that rips off calories, bumps your metabolic system into play so your engine runs at a higher level. The danger, as we all sort of know, I think, is the more you restrict, the more you turn the engine down. The more you can sort of eat in a normal fashion, consciously, knowing what sorts of food equal what sort of energy or calorie, as it will be, the more you could figure out how to balance it by revving the engine in an alternative way from a cardiovascular point of view. So hard exercise bike. I don't want to give too many recommendations because there's controversies on what you do, because what sort of muscle it builds, but the ability to get on some sort of machine or in some way move your body to burn extra calories, that gives you sort of a satisfying life where you feel like you can go big and control your body shape and weight and not have to live a life of starving yourself or restriction. Oh, I absolutely cook. I'm Italian, so it's in me from that point of view. And I do so because I like to control what I eat to some degree. I like to eat fresh, seasonal, homegrown sorts of foods. And I grew up in a grocery store in rural California, and then the rest of my family are farmers. So I'm used to eating seasonally from the ground. Eating good fruit when it's in season, foods that come naturally when they're supposed to. So fortunately for me, I have that sort of background and training. But I'm not a picky eater. I'm not an uptight eater, but I am picky, I'd say, in terms of what I do, and I like to control what I'm putting into my body. And cooking is the best way to do it, because you don't have to eat bad stuff. You can eat very good stuff, but I choose where I get my fats mostly. And when one cooks, there's a lot of ways to cheat adding fat to the equation. There's plenty of that out in the world in natural foods, and I won't add that in any way. So packaged sorts of things, cooking with excessive amounts of oil or butter, I won't do. So when I can cook, which I do a lot, in fact I control the food in the household a bit in a fun way, there's all kinds of tricks to, again, cheat the system. There's all sorts of dairy tricks that you can get that are fat reduced or fat free that give you as much nutrition but cut the calories. So yeah, I enjoy going out as well. I will do that, but I'm thoughtful about what I eat. The other key to the equation, though, is I do work out hard every single day to give myself the freedom to eat and enjoy life, as I desire. My one sneaky fat that I will do on a fairly regular basis, though, but based on my workout, is Haagen-Dazs. I always eat in the AM, and then avoid eating much all day. In fact, I just eat enough to keep me from being hypoglycemic. So a little bit of dried fruit, a few nuts, maybe one bite of carb. That's my way of sort of keeping myself alert and a little bit on edge, appropriately on edge. But I always do breakfast, and it'll be something simple, like a simple whole grain, couple pieces of toast, or cereal. I don't stray from that almost ever. And thank you, Matteo and Team Zarely. Always fun talking to you guys, working with you guys, supporting what you do.